Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region.
It's no secret that the United States wishes to extend its influence in the Middle East. After all, the state has some powerful strategic allies like Qatar and Saudi Arabia at their disposal, but they don't always see eye to eye. Muslim states in America don't align completely, at least ideologically, and having a non-Muslim state right in the middle of the predominantly Islamic Middle East is the only one of its kind. And that's precisely why the United States wants to maintain the best possible relationship with it. History of relations. The United States has never shied away from publicly voicing its support for Israel. It has a long-standing, extremely positive relationship with the Middle Eastern state. The military in the state is backed almost entirely by the Western superpower. This support isn't new, though, and goes back all the way to the end of the Second World War. After the war, the United States endorsed the establishment of a Jewish state. Together with the Soviet Union and Great Britain, the US played a huge part in the Allies winning World War II. It even offered up to $50 billion in assistance. But during the first few years of Israel's existence, the United States didn't really voice its support for Israel. Thanks to John F. Kennedy, though, the building blocks of one of the most positive relationships in the world between two countries were laid. In 1962, Kennedy said it was a special relationship. How did this special bond come about? Well, both countries were committed to Israel's right to exist peacefully. If it wasn't for the 1967 war, this relationship wouldn't have begun to flourish. Beginning of the relationship. Even though Israel was powerful at the time, the state was still new and needed help getting back up after the 1967 war. Here's where the US stepped in, not only selling, but also giving weapons to the Israelis. Israel seemed to have special privileges, especially because the United States was allowing them to borrow from US banks at lower than market rates to support development efforts. During the 1980s and 1990s, the United States and Israel initiated a collaborative effort in the realms of research, development, and the production of military technology. The two of them have similar interests, and the most important of these is the military. Clearly, this partnership was successful and eventually gained significant momentum over time. Under the leadership of President Bill Clinton in 1999, the relationship between Israel and the US kept improving as he aimed to cultivate enduring peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors. As a result of this shared goal, the United States ended up signing the first of 3 10-year agreements with Israel, all of which aimed to provide billions of dollars in military aid alone to Israel. Relations in the 21st century. The modern world as we know it changed forever on September 11, 2001. The 9/11's terror attacks are, according to some people, the most significant historical event of the early 21st century, which altered the course of international relations forever. After these attacks, the United States' relations in the Arabic countries of the Middle East rapidly started to deteriorate. And as a result, the US had more funding for states like Israel. As a result of this outpouring of financial support provided by the US to Israel, there were several advancements in Israel's surveillance technology and signal intelligence. In fact, by the 2000s, these advancements were on the same level as, and in some cases even better than those of the United States. At this point, the US and its vested interest in Israel's military development was clear as day. If there's one thing that Israel has been committed to since its establishment, it's military development. The area has always been a breeding ground for conflict, which explains why America has sent in billions in military funding alone. This funding, combined with other state efforts in Israel, led to the introduction of the Iron Dome in 2011. It seems like Israel and the US have only been getting closer, and we have the numbers to prove it. As of 2019, Israel receives $3.8 billion in annual military aid from the US, which makes up approximately 16% of Israel's total military budget in 2022. While this aid remains significant, Israel has developed its own advanced manufacturing capabilities, allowing it to produce a wide range of weapons and equipment independently, with a few exceptions like F-16 and F-35 fighter jets. As if this wasn't enough, Israel has come so far in the military industry that it has been named the 10th largest military exporter globally. Who's number one, you ask? Well, it's none other than the United States. The military, industrial, and surveillance complexes of the US and Israel are closely intertwined. This relationship has led to some degree of interdependence, with American capacities being influenced by Israeli advancements, relations outside of military aspect. The US and Israel have many shared interests military-wise, but also have strong economic and historical bonds. A substantial volume of bilateral trade amounts to nearly $50 billion in goods and services between the two countries. Israel is also a pawn to push the United States' goal of creating an integrated, prosperous, and secure Middle East, all while expanding its global focus, particularly towards areas such as Russia and China. The Trump administration facilitated agreements to normalize relations between Israel and some of its Muslim-majority neighbors, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco. Israel and Gaza, where does the United States come in? While the US has facilitated some form of peace in the region, there's no denying that it has also been a huge facilitator of conflict within Israel. Most recently, there was an attack on Israel by Hamas, a militant group in Gaza. The Hamas attack is believed to be aimed at disrupting talks facilitated by the Biden administration that seek to further normalize relations between Israel and its main regional rival, Saudi Arabia. This normalization could potentially enable them to unite against their shared enemy, Iran, which provides financial support to Hamas. In retaliation for this attack, the number of casualties in Gaza has risen to a minimum of 5,087 fatalities, with an additional 15,273 individuals sustaining injuries. The Israeli military has conducted airstrikes non-stop in the Gaza Strip after one attack from Hamas. It also targeted various Hezbollah sites in Lebanon. There was a similar, smaller outbreak of violence in 2021, in which 3 airstrikes in Gaza killed 62 Palestinian civilians. In 2 of those attacks, American munitions were used. Despite Israel having its own arms industry, the United States still plays a vital role in supporting it, especially during periods of conflict. This has been true during the Gaza War too, where the US is likely to approve additional funding for Israel. Just recently, President Biden has proposed $2 billion in supplemental aid for missile interceptors, artillery shells, and other munitions. President Biden himself, who criticized Netanyahu's government in the past, just released a statement saying that the US stands with Israel.
That the United States stands with Israel.
Furthermore, it will provide what is necessary for its defense and response to the ongoing attack. Even the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, assured Israel of US support, emphasizing that even though Israel is strong enough to defend itself, it will always have American backing. This unwavering commitment to Israel's security has been the most consistent aspect of US foreign policy for decades. It's clear that the US will not back down from defending Israel and will do whatever it takes to provide unconditional aid to the country. The total amount of aid to Israel has totaled a massive $158 billion since World War II alone, making it the largest recipient of US aid. Even though the US insists that it won't deploy troops to Israel, the Western superpower still offers substantial support to the Israeli military and security forces. Everything from American guided missile carriers to F-35 fighters have made their way to Israel, and it looks like Congress is likely to authorize additional aid following the recent attack by Hamas.